The Karate Kid's crane kick might just be the most unrealistic thing in the entire movie. The Karate Kid turns 40 years old today, so here are some things I bet you never knew about it. The idea for The Karate Kid came from two real-life sources. One was screenwriter Robert Mark Kamen, who when he was 17 got beat up by a group of bullies at the 1964 World's Fair and started training in martial arts to defend himself. He discovered Okinawan Goju Ryu, which is a defensive style of combat meant to turn your opponent's aggression against them, created by a man named Chojun Miyagi. Kamen became a well-known screenwriter in 1981 after he co-wrote the military drama Taps, starring George C. Scott and a young Tom Cruise. Around that time, he heard through his mentor Frank Price, the head of Columbia Pictures, that producer Jerry Weintraub, who had made Diner and Nashville, had optioned an article about an 8-year-old boy in Hawaii who was bullied and turned to karate to defend himself. Weintraub asked Kamen if he had a story to wrap around this, and so Kamen used his own life and this article as the basis for The Karate Kid. Columbia Pictures, which backed The Karate Kid, had also just signed Rocky director John G. Avildsen and was looking for something Rocky-esque for him to direct. Ralph Macchio told Sports Illustrated in 2018 that the script was a little corny and maybe a little overly saccharine and sweet. DC Comics actually had a character named Karate Kid, and the filmmakers had to get special permission to use the title. Martin Kove said they all complained about the title for being too basic and immature. Macchio said he even fought to change the title because he was worried it would follow him for the rest of his life. Sorry, but I guess it did. The main character's name was original Danny Weber, but Macchio says they changed it to Danny LaRusso for him. Sylvester Stallone later joked that The Karate Kid was a Rocky ripoff, right down to the Italian hero and old man mentor. The movie was given a budget of $8 million, and definitely remember that number. Robert Downey Jr., Charlie Sheen, Emilio Estevez, John Cryer, C. Thomas Howell, Tom Cruise, D.B. Sweeney, Nicolas Cage, Anthony Edwards, and Eric Stoltz were all considered for the part of Danny. Ralph Macchio was brought in to audition based on his performance in The Outsiders. Kamen says in his first meeting with Macchio, he showed the young actor some karate moves, and Macchio couldn't do any of them. Kamen said the young actor was uncoordinated and wimpy, but that was exactly what they wanted. He said Macchio's lack of experience was perfect. The producers wanted Toshiro Mifune from Seven Samurai and Rashomon to play Mr. Miyagi, but he didn't speak any English, so that was a no-go. Producer Jerry Weintraub really didn't want Pat Morita to play Mr. Miyagi. Morita was best known as Arnold from Happy Days and as a raunchy stand-up comedian. And so Weintraub flat out rejected him for the role. This came at a really tough time for Morita and his family. They had just lost their home in a mudslide, his mother-in-law had passed away, their youngest daughter was sick, and Pat's stand-up career had taken a dive. But this was a rich character and a huge opportunity. So Morita grew a beard and practiced an accent based on his uncle, and the director, John Avildsen, gave Morita another shot. According to production coordinator Susan Eakins, Morita's second audition almost brought Jerry to tears. He said, "That is Mr. Miyagi." Helen Hunt and Demi Moore auditioned to play Allie, but Elizabeth Shue got the part thanks to her very popular Burger King commercial. This was her first movie. Crispin Glover auditioned to play Johnny, but it went to Billy Zabka after he threatened the director in character during his audition. Zabka had done some wrestling, but had no karate experience prior to the movie. Ralph Macchio apparently told the filmmakers that Zabka scared the shit out of him during their chemistry read. Kurt Russell, Jeff Bridges, Harvey Keitel, Leonard Nimoy, and Christopher Walken were all considered for Crease, which went to Martin Kove. Sarah Jessica Parker was going to play the part of Susan, Allie's friend, but dropped out due to scheduling conflicts. And maybe it's me, but does Chapel Rowan not look exactly like a young Sarah Jessica Parker? The cast and stunt people rehearsed and trained for 2 months prior to filming, including 5 days a week doing hours a day of karate and a few days on dirt bikes. Martial arts expert Pat Johnson was brought in to teach them karate. Johnson had previously worked with Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon and Chuck Norris. He appears as the referee in the movie. Martin Kove said he modeled some of his performance off Johnson. Zabka said the Cobra Kai guys really bonded during this time, and that John Avildsen kept Ralph Macchio separated from them to increase their tension in the film. Johnson trained Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita separately, which led the two of them to form a close bond. Ron Thomas was the only cast member who had some prior martial arts experience. He was a second-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he kept it a secret from the producers because they only wanted to hire actors for the movie and then train them. He finally revealed his secret talent 6 weeks into training. The Karate Kid went into production on Halloween Day in 1983, filming at a beach in Malibu. The first scene they shot were the Cobra Kai guys descending on Danny on their bikes. The movie shot on location in and around Los Angeles, but showed a different, grittier side of the city not often seen in movies. Bronx. The Cobra Kai dojo was in North Hollywood, and Mr. Miyagi's house was in Canoga Park. A lot of the cast and crew did not take the movie seriously when they were filming it. Ron Thomas's manager told him that it would have no audience. Bud Smith said they treated the movie like this little film no one would give a shit about. And Rob Garrison tells a story that only director John Avildsen thought it would be a classic. You know the fly catching scene? They tried to do that with real flies. There was a fly wrangler who put flies in a refrigerator to slow them down, but that wasn't working, so then they attached a dead fly to a pole and string and then bobbed it up and down, but that apparently didn't look right, so they grabbed a black fuzz off a crew member's sweater and put that on an even longer pole and string, and that's what's in the movie. Danny was originally supposed to train with a hydraulic dummy that would hit him back, but they couldn't get the mechanics to work, so instead they put Mr. Miyagi in a catcher's mask and padding. The dummy later appeared in Karate Kid 3. The big Halloween fight scene led to 2 injuries. Billy Zabka accidentally kicked Ralph Macchio in the head for real, while Mr. Miyagi's stunt double, karate master Fumio Demura, who had also worked with Bruce Lee, accidentally broke Rob Garrison's nose. Pat Morita really understood Mr. Miyagi as a character. Morita himself was a child living in California during World War II, and was put in a Japanese internment camp with his family. Ralph Macchio said Morita was very aware that The Karate Kid would be one of the first mainstream movies to talk about the American government's Japanese internment camps. And so Morita was very specific and intentional when it came time to do the drinking scene. They named Miyagi's late wife after Morita's actual wife. Crew members apparently cried in reaction to Morita's performance and applauded him. Kamen then says the studio wanted to cut that scene from the movie, but once they showed it to a test audience, of course it stayed in. And it's likely the reason that Morita became the first Asian American man to be nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars. Production coordinator Susan Eakins said that Morita was only paid $30,000 for the film. Joe Esposito initially wrote his song You're the Best for Rocky III, but it ended up in Karate Kid instead. The lyric History Repeats Itself, Try and You'll Succeed probably would have made more sense in Rocky III. In order to fill up the stands for the big final tournament, they staged an actual karate tournament with real competitors. The staged karate in the movie apparently looked pretty bad up against the actual karate going on that day. To shoot it realistically, Avildsen hid 9 cameras within the crowd, and Rob Garrison didn't say his famous line, "Get him a body bag," on set that day. He recorded it during an ADR session 2 months later. After he said the line, Avildsen told him, "That's going to be a classic. You'll never be forgotten because of that line." And yes, the crane kick is 100% fiction. It would be neither practical nor legal in an actual karate competition. Kamen made it up because it was cinematic and would look cool. They wrapped production on December 16th, 1983, so roughly just 6 weeks of filming. And Kamen and Avildsen knew the movie would be a success after a New York City test screening when they saw some guys in suits trying to do the crane kick. The movie, which you'll recall had an $8 million budget, opened to $5 million on June 22nd, 1984, and then went on to gross $91 million worldwide, making it the 5th highest grossing movie of 1984, behind Beverly Hills Cop, Ghostbusters, Temple of Doom, and Gremlins. Critics really liked it. The Karate Kid has 89% on Rotten Tomatoes today. Roger Ebert gave it a perfect 4 out of 4 stars. And as I mentioned before, it was nominated for 1 Oscar for Pat Morita. The movie led to an immediate explosion of karate across the country. Kamen said he heard of dojos doubling their student base because of the film. The Karate Kid and its sequel spawned an NES game in 1987 and a 1989 animated series that lasted 13 episodes. In 2022, a musical theater adaptation of The Karate Kid debuted in St. Louis. It was aimed at Broadway, but a New York production hasn't happened yet. Everyone knows about the 3 sequels and the 2010 remake, and the massively popular Emmy-nominated sequel series Cobra Kai, which partially happened because Billy Zabka played himself on How I Met Your Mother and showed us that maybe Johnny Lawrence was more complex and complicated than we had originally thought. But a new Karate Kid movie, combining the original continuity with the 2010 remake, is also in the works. It's going to star Jackie Chan as Mr. Han, Ralph Macchio as Danny LaRusso, and Ben Wong as the new Karate Kid. It's set to be released May 30th, 2025. And as of 2018, the movie's original screenwriter, Robert Mark Kamen, is still practicing karate every single day.